I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry.
House Democrats have finally announced a formal impeachment inquiry of Donald Trump. Now, there is so much I want to go over here that I'm afraid I'm going to forget something, because I think this is largely positive, but this could also be a negative. And in fact, I think if the impeachment actually does go through and Trump is convicted in the Senate, which I think is more possible than people are thinking at this time, if that actually happens and Trump is impeached, I think that is potentially the worst case scenario for Democrats. And I'll explain why. I know it sounds crazy, but I'll explain to you why I think that is actually the worst possible way this could come out for Democrats. But understand here, this is ultimately about principle. This is about understanding that you need to hold the president to account for his crimes, as we're going to get to. So there's also, before I get to that, there's also the added benefit that I think this will hurt Joe Biden and potentially help Bernie Sanders, but that's more speculation on my part. But again, we'll get to that later. So understand, let me try and lay out the timeline here. It's kind of crazy that it's happening now after everything that Trump has done already. So, I mean, before this call to Ukraine that we'll get to in a second, there were 11 instances of obstruction of justice. There's been Trump's hush money payments. Trump violated the emoluments clause. He vetoed the war powers resolution. I mean, any one of these are potential articles for impeachment. But it took a phone call to Ukraine over Joe Biden's son to really get this going. So let me break down the series of events here. So this call to Ukraine that Trump did happened the day after Robert Mueller's testimony over the summer. So at that point, it was clear to Trump that Democrats were not going to push for his impeachment. And it appeared to free Trump up to have this call with Ukraine. So The Intercept here breaks down the details. On Thursday evening, the Post reported that the country involved was Ukraine. From there, it didn't take long to piece together what happened, capped off with confessions from both Trump and his attorney, Rudy Giuliani, the bagman for the operation. Trump had demanded that in exchange for U.S. aid, the new Ukrainian president investigate links between then Vice President Joe Biden, his son Hunter Biden, and a scandal that involves the firing of a prosecutor and a natural gas company, on whose board Hunter was paid handsomely to sit. The affair itself is not what it appears. By getting the prosecutor fired, Biden probably hurt Hunter's company more than anything, but it looks bad enough. Indeed, Hunter Biden had no skills to offer the natural gas company other than his appearance of an ability to influence his father, whether he did so or not. Trump clearly saw leveraging it as his advantage in the 2020 election. Now, you may think, why does this matter? I mean, out of everything Donald Trump has done so far, why is this the piece of information that has now pushed Democrats to move for a formal impeachment inquiry? Well, first, I'll let Judge Napolitano explain here. Republican Judge Napolitano explain exactly why this matters.
The president admits that on a phone call with the president of Ukraine, he requested that the president of Ukraine investigate his 2020 political rival, Joe Biden. Is that a crime?
It is a crime for the president to solicit aid for his campaign from a foreign government.
So that would be that to which the president has admitted is in and of itself a crime.
Yes, an agreement or a solicitation for assistance for an American campaign regulated by the Federal Election Commission where you are seeking the assistance from a foreign government. That's the crime.
So there you go. What Trump did is a crime. Now, I don't think this is anywhere near the most important issue. And you could argue that Democrats really only care now because Trump was going after one of their own, Joe Biden and his son, and that's what really bothers them. Whatever your argument is, I get it. Like, this is really not, in my opinion, all that important. But with that said, what Trump did here is impeachable. In addition to everything else he's already done, that is also impeachable. So, I mean, the one, if you're wondering about the timing here, I completely get it. But understand, they should have moved for impeachment earlier. I was pushing for impeachment earlier, as were many other Democrats like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and other progressive Democrats in the House. So this is kind of just, it's finally happening. So if this is what does it, okay, it should have happened earlier, but understand it's still a reason to impeach, even if you don't think it's the biggest deal. Now, so after this all, came out, there was a joint op-ed in the Washington Post with some of the most vocal Democrats who were against impeachment initially, now coming out in favor of it. And after that happened, Nancy Pelosi was forced to act.
For the past several months, we have been investigating in our committees and litigating in the courts, so the House can gather all the relevant facts and consider whether to exercise its full Article I powers, including a constitutional power of the utmost gravity, approval of articles of impeachment. And this week, the president has admitted to asking the president of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. The actions of the Trump presidency revealed the dishonorable fact of the president's betrayal of his oath of office, betrayal of our national security, and betrayal of the integrity of our elections. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella of impeachment inquiry. The president must be held accountable. No one is above the law.
So, in my opinion, it's about damn time. As I said, this should have happened way earlier, but at least it's happening now. And my same argument for supporting impeachment before is the same argument I have now. This is a principled stance against what the president should be allowed to do. If he breaks the law, he should be held accountable. As Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report tweeted out, when poor people break the law, we lock them in cages. When people in power break the law, they receive a get-out-of-jail-free card. Trump isn't above the law, even if the end result won't be impeachment. Take it as far as we can. Congress is obligated to follow the Constitution. So that's exactly right. Now, I in some way get some of the fears that I'm hearing from the left. So for one, people will say, well, it'll galvanize the Trump's base. It'll bring Trump's base out to really support him in 2020 because he's not going to be convicted in the Senate. He'll still be president, and he's really going to win strong in 2020. Here's the reality. I mean, you look at the numbers. Republican voters, Trump voters, come out in big numbers regardless. So in 2018, many people think, oh, Republicans got completely destroyed. Democrats came out in huge numbers and just completely decimated. Well, they decimated many Republicans, but that's only because Democratic voters came out in huge numbers, because Republican voters also came out in record numbers. The reality is there are just a lot more people that dislike Donald Trump than support him. So if both bases are engaged and come out to vote, Democrats win. The Republican base is engaged regardless. So what Democrats have to do is engage their base, excite people to come out and vote, get non-voters to come out and vote. This is why I think Bernie Sanders is the best candidate to get people to come out and vote, because he is an independent. He is somebody with a 40-year track record not being aligned to either party. You have someone like that running for president, you will get non-voters out to vote for him. But going away from that, so there's other fears, like it's going to take, I've seen this argument a few times, an impeachment inquiry will take attention away from the election. So, Bernie Sanders won't get the attention that he deserves because all the media will be focused on the impeachment. To that, I say, have you been paying attention so far? They're already ignoring Bernie Sanders. And when he is covered, it's negative. So this idea that an impeachment inquiry will just consume the media, well, the media is not helping Bernie Sanders right now. They're not reporting his policies or his proposals honestly. They're not reporting on his massive crowds, on his support, on how he has the most individual donors by far, the most volunteers by far, the most donations by far. They're not reporting on any of that. So an impeachment inquiry won't affect that either way. The other fear, and I think this is more of the legitimate fear, Democrats will screw this up somehow. I totally get it. Democrats screw up most things. The leadership is horrible. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer are horrible. So I totally get it. It's very possible that Democrats will somehow screw this up. Maybe not focus enough on Trump's previous crimes and focus too much on this call with Ukraine. That would be screwing it up. But at the same time, you have to take a principled stance here, and you can't lead from a position of fear. You have to show strength and show leadership and hold the people in power accountable. Now, we also have to see the articles of impeachment, so we don't really know what they're going to be focused on in the impeachment inquiry. And here's where we get to the scenario that I think is not being discussed enough. I actually think there's a good chance that Trump will be convicted in the Senate. So when impeachment comes up, you see arguments saying, well, the Senate's not going to convict Trump anyways. He'll just get away with it and it'll empower him and he'll win in 2020. I actually think if Republican politicians are smart, they will move to convict. They will impeach Donald Trump. Because what that does is it cuts off the tumor. Cuts off Donald Trump. Conservative voters are loyal anyways. Many of them will come out and vote anyways. And at the same time, getting rid of Trump depresses the Democratic vote. So with Trump no longer there as the boogeyman, many Democratic voters have less of a reason to come out and vote in 2020. So if Republicans actually push and support impeachment of Donald Trump, I think it'll benefit them. That's my fear here. And adding to that fear was this story out of the week showing that the Senate did vote unanimously to release the whistleblower complaint about the call to Ukraine, showing there is a desire from Republicans to focus on this. So, yeah, it's very likely, I think, that Trump will actually be convicted in the Senate and will be removed from office. I think it's very possible. I think it's a lot more possible than people are giving it credit. At the same time here, there are some other benefits. So, potential benefits. This part is a little more speculation on my part, but I think this hurts Joe Biden. Joe Biden, his only case right now to be the Democratic nominee is that he's better than Trump, which is a very low bar, but that's his case. That's what he's appealing to. If you have Trump gone, or it looks like Trump's going to be kicked out, then you actually move to a scenario in the primary where you got to focus on substance and what these candidates are actually about. So that helps immediately Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders in that case. So I do think getting rid of Trump hurts Joe Biden. Now, before I go here, there is a late update to this story that came out this morning, so I'm going to go over this briefly. It kind of just, adds to the evidence about the wrongdoing with this call to Ukraine. So there's actually the transcript was released, or a summary of the transcript was released, which is weird. They wouldn't just, release the full thing. But it essentially shows that even though it's just a summary, Trump did indeed commit a crime. So this from Jeff Zeleny. President Trump repeatedly pushed for the Ukrainian president to reopen an investigation of Joe Biden and his son, and asked the Ukrainian leader to work with Rudy Giuliani and Attorney General William Barr on the issue, according to a transcript of the July call. And quoting Trump here, AOC tweets, quote, "I would like you to do us a favor," end quote. "Folks, I'm surprised the White House even released this transcript. It's worse than we thought. The president sought to use the powers of the United States government to investigate a political opponent. We have no choice but to impeach." So there you go. The evidence that the White House released, the summary of the transcript that the White House themselves released, shows that what Trump did is impeachable. That's it. So look, again, just to reiterate, I understand there are fears out there, some legitimate, some not. But if you're looking at this in terms of taking a principled stance and understanding that if the president does something that is impeachable, you can't just let it go. You can't just set a standard where the president just can do whatever the hell he wants. You have to push for impeachment. You have to show strength. Leading from a position of fear, I don't think is beneficial to anybody. Is beneficial to Democrats. I mean, that's what Democrats have done for the past 40 years. They've led from fear, and it hasn't helped them in most cases. So I think in this scenario, pushing for impeachment is the right thing to do, even if there are some fears on potentially, what may or may not happen because of it.